each of the projects started at different times. So like Project Nimbus started in 2007 in response to a US military paper about non-lethal weapons, and a lot of the other kind of art science aspects to it kind of really began in 2011 with phase revival. So that's a 6-meter kinetic sculpture which takes the quantum world and scales it up to the human experience. And then since then, over the time, superpositions sort of developed, and Project Nimbus developed with art science collaboration, and then later on Frozen Music, which was a collaboration between a neuroscientist, myself, and creative programmers and musicians. And so it's been a kind of ongoing process. I think I've always been interested in story, so there's something about the way that the world works. And I always wanted to be a scientist growing up, but I was no good at maths, which turns out you don't need maths anyway. But it was always that kind of pursuit, wanting to know how things work, and just wanting to find out sort of through doing it, through taking things apart and sort of tinkering and just kind of finding out about the world through that way, really. So Project Nimbus, so that's the world's first projection of moving images on the clouds from aircraft. The initial idea was 2007, upon finding this US military paper about projecting a guard onto the clouds above a small little village. They think it's Rapture, the end of the world. And so I wanted to come up with a way of making a kind of open source sort of cloud projector that I could share with artists and activists. 2012, I was talking to John O'Shea and telling him about the project, and then he sort of suggested that I speak to these pilots and speak to the AND Festival and Full of Noises Festival, and before I knew it I was doing a small little commission to sort of see if it was possible. We got together with a group of other people to see if we could kind of kickstart collaborations in Leeds for other people to do interesting projects. And that's where the superposition started, with myself, these scientists, and a couple of other artists and producers. And that's kind of grown over the 3 years, so now we do a yearly kind of pop-up lab, which is where people get together for 7 days in like a rapid prototype environment, and they kind of make different projects. And some of the projects have been shown at DESI, which is a synchrotron in Hamburg, been presented to Nobel laureates, and all sorts of things. And we started to kind of understand what the model is, and so part of the reason for bringing all of these different models together here is to sort of try and understand how they work, and just kind of sit back and kind of reflect on them. And so looking at Nimbus, this 4-year project, how can that be communicated on a single wall? And so it's a lot about engaging the public to kind of have these conversations to try and understand that. With the Frozen Music Collective, that came about through doing some research with EEG, which kind of scans your brain waves, and we're looking at the creative application of that. And so there was myself, Christoph de Besnak, a neuroscientist, Chris Sharkey, who's a jazz musician, and Richard England and Paul Miller, and we got together and just started to kind of experiment about how we could use people's brainwaves to control projection mapping, and then looking at different ideas about how that really interacts with kind of the sense of self. So I suppose some of the dreams for superposition is that it becomes a model that other people can use to collaborate. So the reason why we're doing an event here is that it might inspire other people to do it. And we're just interested to see how that kind of goes off into the world, and eventually I suppose it would be amazing if in 10 years' time that some of the work that we do now can really help change things about how art and science are taught, because of the way that people communicate when it's so early on in a process, as opposed to being two different things, can really change the way that art, science and everything else is made.